Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. Today, we're really diving deep into something pretty intense, but really important. We're looking at severe anxiety and panic, but specifically the physical side.
Yeah, the raw bodily experience. Not just feeling worried, but feeling like your body is actually, failing, like it's in crisis.
Exactly. And this isn't about, like, mild nerves before a presentation. We've gathered loads of personal stories, hundreds actually, where people felt like they were having a heart attack, maybe a stroke, went to the ER
Multiple times, often. I saw that come up again and again.
multiple times. Yeah. And the goal here is to kind of map it out for you. What does this extreme physical alarm actually feel like? Why does the system get stuck in this loop? And crucially, what do these people find actually, help them recover?
Because it's so easy to get lost in all the information online, isn't it? It feels really fragmented, sometimes overwhelming. So we want to try and structure it. Map the alarm first, then understand the wiring, the hyperstimulation, and finally look at the tools people used.
Make it feel a bit more like, okay, here are the chapters, here's how it fits together. And it really challenges that common idea that anxiety is purely mental, that it just starts with a worried thought.
Right.
These accounts really show how, for many people, it can start in the body, this intense physical thing that almost tricks the mind into panicking.
Yeah, it's fascinating how the physical feelings can seem to come first. Okay, so let's get into mapping that alarm system then. The really extreme physical stuff people described.
Let's start right at the sharp end, the acute panic attack.
Yeah.
We need to go beyond just saying rapid breathing or fast heart rate.
Yeah, because the sources describe cardiovascular and respiratory symptoms that are just incredibly intense. So intense that people are absolutely convinced they're having a heart attack or maybe even a stroke.
It's physically indistinguishable in the moment. People talk about this crushing chest pain like literally someone was sitting on my chest.
Yeah.
Or this awful vice-like grip around their ribs. And yeah, palpitations are common with anxiety, but the speed here is something else. We saw one severe case documented where someone's heart rate resting
Yeah.
spiked to 210, maybe even 220 beats per minute.
220 resting. That's astronomical. Your body must feel like it's absolutely tearing itself apart.
It's screaming danger at the brain, even if the heart muscle itself is perfectly healthy. It's like your body is doing an all-out sprint while you're just standing there or sitting down. Utterly terrifying.
And the breathing often follows, right? That horrible choking or strangling feeling in the throat people describe.
That's often the throat muscles just seizing up because of that massive adrenaline surge. Globus sensation, it's sometimes called. It feels like you physically can't get air in.
Which understandably sends people straight to the emergency room.
Absolutely. And you have to get it checked out. You really do. Because the symptoms feel so real, so life-threatening. But then the doctors run the ECG, maybe a stress test, a sonogram,
All the tests.
and everything comes back.
Never.
Clean bill of health, structurally, which is obviously good news, but it can feel incredibly invalidating, even confusing, when you're still feeling that intense pain or pressure. And eventually, that leads to the panic disorder diagnosis.
But the experience doesn't stop at the heart and lungs, does it? The neurological stuff sounds just as bizarre and frightening, people pulling over while driving because they're shaking so uncontrollably.
Yeah. And the motor function issues. The description of the hands really stood out to me, too.
Claws.
Yes, exactly. Carpal tunnel spasm. It's where the body's chemistry just goes completely haywire for a bit. One person gave this horrifying account of both hands curling up into these rigid, painful claws that they literally could not unclench.
Oh my God.
Others mentioned their jaw muscles locking up tight. It sounds medieval, but it's a real physiological response.
How does that even happen? Why the hand?
It's usually a direct result of hyperventilation, that rapid, shallow breathing we mentioned. When you breathe out too much CO2 too quickly, it changes your blood pH, makes it more alkaline. Respiratory alkalosis.
Okay.
And that chemical shift messes with the calcium ions in your body, which are crucial for muscle function. So you get these involuntary muscle contractions, the cramping, the rigidity in the hands and feet, sometimes around the mouth too.
Wow. So a mental trigger, panic, leads to altered breathing, which causes a chemical change, leading to a purely physical muscle spasm. That's a really clear mind-body link.
It's a perfect example. And beyond the spasms, there's all the other neurological weirdness people report. Losing the ability to speak temporarily.
Aphasia, almost.
Yeah, or widespread tingling, pins and needles, paresthesia spreading across their hands, feet, face. Plus that intense dizziness, lightheadedness, feeling woozy. It must feel like you're having a stroke or some kind of neurological event.
It really must. And then there are the sensory disturbances, the visual stuff, which adds another layer of disorientation.
hmm Blurred vision is common, or people describing their vision just going click right as the panic peaks, like a switch flips.
I was really struck by the descriptions linked to existential panic, that deep fear of death or non-existence. People reported seeing like a harsh static or a cold fuzz overlaying their vision when they thought about it.
Or like a shimmer. It's as if the internal state of alarm is literally bleeding into their sensory perception.
That's a powerful way to put it, bleeding into perception.
And that leakage seems real. We also saw reports of phosphine activity, seeing fireworks or flashes of light with their eyes closed, especially trying to sleep.
Right, yeah.
Or visual snow, maybe, and distortions in spatial awareness, feeling like their vision is suddenly zoomed in, hyper-focusing or only noticing things in their peripheral vision. It's all symptomatic of a nervous system just completely overloaded and misfiring signals.
And the awful thing is, the misery doesn't necessarily stop when the acute attack fades. That's when the chronic stuff can set in, right?
Yeah,
The lingering discomfort.
exactly. The immediate crisis might pass, but then you're left with this frustrating, persistent level of physical unease. This moves us into the long-term impact of being constantly hyperstimulated. People describe it like always having a low-grade flu or feeling like they're constantly carrying a heavy weight, like being under a set of bricks.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. It translates into constant generalized body aches, these weird, painful burning sensations in the arms or legs, transient paresthesias, and just this pervasive feeling of stiffness and tension.
That muscle tension seems like a real hallmark. I remember one source mentioning appalling tightness in their shoulders and back, so bad that even massage therapists commented on it.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, I slept funny.
Yeah.
It's profound muscular bracing, like the body is constantly coiled, ready for a fight that never comes.
And the gut. We have to talk about the gut connection.
Oh, absolutely. The gut-brain axis is so fundamental here. When your nervous system is on high alert, your digestive system often goes haywire almost immediately.
So what did people report specifically?
Horrifyingly painful stomach cramps, really severe stuff. The sudden onset or major worsening of IBS symptoms, irritable bowel syndrome, unrelenting nausea that makes it hard to even think about food, and then cycles of severe diarrhea or constipation. It's miserable.
And if you're always nauseous, always in pain, you stop eating properly, maybe you don't sleep well, it just spirals downwards, physically reinforcing the anxiety, a vicious cycle.
Totally. And maybe the most insidious, most terrifying chronic symptom for many is derealization or depersonalization, DPDR.
Right. This isn't just feeling a bit spaced out.
Not at all. It's described as this profound, chronic feeling of being off balance, or like the world looks zoomed out, unreal, like watching a movie of your own life, or feeling like you're viewing things in third person.
That sounds incredibly alienating.
It is. The sense of disconnection can be so intense. One person shared feeling that even their own husband didn't feel like my husband, just gone. That connection, that familiarity.
Oh, wow. That internal sense of reality just breaking down. How long can that last?
That's the really scary part. The sources indicate it can be incredibly persistent. Weeks, months. Sometimes people reported feeling detached like that for a year or even longer, continuously.
A whole year. Good grief.
It's thought to be a kind of protective mechanism, the mind sort of shutting down sensory and emotional input to cope with overwhelm. But it leaves the person feeling terrified they're losing their mind or that they'll never feel connected to themselves or the world again. It's this awful transition from acute terror to this chronic detached misery that really defines severe ongoing anxiety for many.
Okay, so understanding just how physical these symptoms are, it makes you ask, how does the system get stuck like this? Why does it keep running this marathon of misery? We need to dig into that cycle, the hyperstimulation loop.
Yeah, and one of the really critical ideas that came out of the sources is that the anxiety might often start with the physical alarm first, not necessarily a worry or a thought.
So the body sends out a danger signal, maybe the amygdala fires off, you get that adrenaline rush, that horrible feeling in your chest or stomach.
Exactly. That painful sensation happens first. And then the higher brain, the thinking part, scrambles to make sense of it. It tries to create a narrative, a reason why you feel this way.
Why am I feeling this crushing pain? Oh God, it must be a heart attack. Or why am I so dizzy? It must be a brain tumor.
Precisely. Which kind of flips the usual script, doesn't it? The common idea is that anxiety always starts with a thought, a what if, that spirals out of control. But these accounts suggest the body can sound the alarm, and the fearful thoughts latch onto that feeling afterwards, trying to explain the physical agony.
Did people mention experiencing that directly, like waking up in panic?
Yes, several accounts describe exactly that. Waking up suddenly in the middle of the night, already in a full-blown panic attack, with absolutely no conscious negative thought or nightmare preceding it. That points strongly towards the amygdala, the body's smoke detector, firing off first.
And that mechanism, that's what we mean by nervous system dysregulation or hyperstimulation, right? The system is just stuck in high alert.
That's the core of it. The body is basically locked in a fight-or-flight mode, perpetually ready for danger, even when you're just, watching TV or trying to work. The threat isn't real, but the body believes it is.
Which explains why all those chronic symptoms hang around: the cold hands and feet, the constant muscle tension, the sleep problems, the gut issues.
Right. The baseline level of arousal is just set way too high. It's like a smoke detector that's become so overly sensitive that goes off from a tiny bit of steam, not just actual smoke.
And the fight or flight response is fundamentally about movement, isn't it? Evolutionarily speaking.
Absolutely. Stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol are released to prepare the body to physically do something, fight the predator, run away from the danger, get moving.
But in our modern lives, the threat is often internal or perceived. It's that false alarm from the hyperstimulated system. We don't actually fight or flee.
Exactly. So we're sitting there flooded with these powerful stress chemicals designed for action, but we don't physically discharge them. They just keep circulating in the bloodstream, continuing to signal danger to all our tissues, keeping the hyperstimulation going, and actually making it easier for the next panic wave to hit.
The body's revved up for a sprint, but we're stuck in traffic just worrying about the sensations, which probably makes it worse.
It feeds the cycle. And that intense focus on bodily sensations leads us straight into the health anxiety trap, hypochondria, which seems incredibly common in people with chronic anxiety based on these sources.
Once your body feels weird and hypersensitive, you start scanning, right? Noticing every little twinge, every ache, every flutter.
Hypervigilance, exactly. And the mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion for every single sensation. A headache isn't just a headache, it must be an aneurysm. A muscle twitch has to be ALS.
And that hyperfixation itself becomes this engine of suffering. People talked about being convinced for months, even years, they had these devastating illnesses. And did some sources suggest people could almost manifest symptoms?
It's controversial, but yes, in extreme cases, the sheer power of focus and nervous tension seem to lead some people to develop sensations that mimic the disease they feared most. Not the disease itself, obviously, but the physical symptoms driven by anxiety.
That's wild. And it drives that compulsive checking behavior, right? The Googling.
Oh, the nonstop Google medical rabbit hole, as one person perfectly put it. Every new ache, every weird feeling sends them straight to WebMD or Reddit, searching for answers, for diagnoses.
Which provides maybe a tiny bit of temporary relief if they find something that matches benignly.
For a second, maybe. Okay, someone else on the forum had this weird chest sap. Maybe it's just anxiety.
Yeah.
But the moment that physical fear creeps back, in which it will, because the underlying system is still sensitized, they're right back to Googling. It's classic reassurance seeking, and it just fuels the anxiety cycle because it reinforces the belief that the fear needs to be investigated and solved through searching.
So is there a way out of that trap? Did the sources suggest anything?
One tool mentioned was trying to consciously apply Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually the right one.
So a sore muscle is probably just a sore muscle, especially if doctors have already checked you out.
Exactly. If you've had the full medical workup, the ECGs, the blood tests, maybe even scans, and everything is clear, then Occam's razor suggests the simplest explanation for your ongoing weird feelings is, unfortunately, the anxiety and hyperstimulation itself, not some incredibly rare lurking disease the doctors missed.
But then this is a really important, but we have to include that caveat we found, right? The difficult stories.
Yes. Absolutely crucial, because while health anxiety often creates phantom or exaggerated symptoms, we cannot and should not just dismiss all persistent physical pain as just anxiety. There was that really tough story of the person who ignored abdominal pain for like 20 years, thinking it was anxiety.
Only to find out it was severe gallstones needing surgery.
Right. And even more starkly, the individual whose persistent pain, dismissed internally as anxiety, turned out to be a large, rare, cancerous tumor.
Sobering.
It really is. And it underscores the absolute necessity of that first step. Get a thorough, definitive medical evaluation from doctors you trust. Rule out the serious physical stuff comprehensively. Only after you have that clear bill of health can you really start working on accepting the remaining symptoms as anxiety signals with confidence. Check the facts first, then start retraining your response.
Makes sense. Now, shifting slightly from the body focus, the mind gets trapped too, doesn't it, in that compulsive rumination?
Oh, massively. Constantly replaying worries about health, money, work, relationships, death, whatever the theme is. Or even getting stuck in that meta loop. Ruminating about the fact that you're ruminating.
Why can't I stop thinking about this?
Exactly. And the sources identify that rumination itself is a mental ritual, a compulsion, just like checking the stove or washing your hands is for OCD. It sustains the anxiety because you're engaging with the thoughts, treating them as urgent problems that must be solved right now. The key, apparently, is learning to see the thought as just mental noise, not a command or a truth.
And the final piece of this cycle seems to be the sheer agony of recovery not being a straight line. People talked about that hope and despair.
Yeah, thinking they were finally better, having a few good days, maybe even weeks, feeling normal again.
Yeah.
That thought of, yes, it's finally gone.
And then waking up one morning, feeling that old familiar dread, that physical clench of fear, and just being completely crushed. That feeling of, oh God, not again. I'm back to square one.
It's brutal. And that's where understanding that recovery isn't like healing a broken bone is so important. It's not linear. There will be ups and downs, setbacks, bad days.
So progress isn't necessarily feeling good all the time.
Not initially, no. According to these accounts, the real measure of progress is the gap between the intense anxiety episodes getting longer and longer. The intensity might still spike sometimes, but the baseline gets calmer over time, and the time spent feeling okay increases. As one person who recovered put it, the cycle really breaks when I wake up and don't even think about it anymore. The automatic checking, the scanning for symptoms, it just fades away because the fear has lost its grip.
Okay, so if the root problem is this hypersensitized nervous system stuck in fight or flight, it makes sense that the solutions have to focus on, well, retraining that system, both mentally and physically, right?
Exactly. And what was really striking across all these different accounts was the consistency in the strategies that people found genuinely helpful. There were definite common threads, starting with a really fundamental shift in mindset, acceptance. Over and over again, the core message was, stop fighting the anxiety. Stop trying to control or eliminate the feelings.
Because trying to suppress it just makes it stronger, like trying not to think of a pink elephant.
Precisely. The more you fight the panic attack, the more adrenaline you produce, the more you fuel the fire. So, acceptance here means consciously acknowledging the physical symptoms, the fear, the racing thoughts, but choosing not to struggle against them, letting them be there, letting them run their course without adding that second layer of fear about the fear.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Did people use specific phrases or self-talk?
Yeah, lots of examples of internal scripts focused on calm validation. Things like reminding yourself, okay, this feels awful, but I am safe in this moment. Or this is just adrenaline, it's uncomfortable, but it will pass. Or even just, I accept this feeling is here right now. I don't like it, but I accept it.
So acknowledging it without judging it or panicking about it.
Right. And a key part of that is learning to view the panic or the chest pain or the intrusive thought as just a sensation, a physical sensation, a mental sensation. Stripping away the label of dangerous or bad helps remove its power to trigger that secondary wave of fear.
It's like creating distance, becoming the observer of your own experience rather than being completely swept away by it.
That's a great way to put it, becoming the observer. And for people dealing with specific phobias or avoidance, like agoraphobia, which often develops from panic disorder, this acceptance principle ties directly into exposure therapy.
You have to face the things you fear, but do it with acceptance.
Kind of, yeah. The idea is to feel the anxiety, acknowledge it's there, but go do the thing anyway. Go to the grocery store, drive on the highway, sit in the crowded place while allowing the anxiety to be present without fighting it or fleeing immediately.
That phrase from the sources, feel the anxiety and go anyways, really stuck with me. It's about challenging the avoidance.
Exactly, because the avoidance reinforces the brain's belief that the situation itself, the store, the highway, is dangerous. But the danger isn't the store, it's the internal false alarm. By repeatedly exposing yourself to the feared situation without fighting the anxiety, you're actively teaching your nervous system, see? The alarm went off, but nothing terrible actually happened. It was a false alarm. It's gradual neurological reprogramming.
But, like we established, you probably can't just think your way out of that deep physical hyperstimulation. You need to address the body directly too, right? drain those stress hormones.
Absolutely critical. And movement came up again and again as being highly effective. But interestingly, the type of movement seemed to matter depending on the person's state.
How so?
Well, for people feeling really agitated, wired, needing to burn off that excess adrenaline and cortisol, more vigorous movement seemed helpful. Things like kickboxing, dancing, maybe HIIT workouts, even martial arts. One neuroscientist cited in the material actually showed significant drops in anxiety scores when people did these kinds of movements paired with positive affirmations.
So literally using the body to metabolize the stress chemicals. Makes sense.
But then, for people feeling more chronically tense, depleted, exhausted, the sources cautioned against pushing too hard. For them, more gentle, regenerative movement was recommended.
Like what?
Slow yoga, gentle stretching, tai chi, even just mindful walking.
Yeah.
The goal there is more about releasing that deep-seated muscle tension, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders, and introducing soothing, rhythmic patterns to calm the nervous system down rather than taxing it further.
Finding the right type of movement for where your system is at.
Seems to be key. And underpinning all of that is the foundational stuff, lifestyle changes focused on regeneration and reducing system load. This came up constantly.
The basics, but maybe they're basic for a reason. Sleep.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Aiming for 7 to 9 hours of quality, uninterrupted sleep. Making the bedroom a screen-free zone, and rigorously managing, or often eliminating, substances that directly stress the nervous system.
Okay, let's list them again, because this seemed really important in the accounts.
Top culprits mentioned repeatedly: caffeine, alcohol, excessive sugar, nicotine, and for some, even THC, which can be anxiety-provoking for sensitive systems.
Because these things act like pouring gasoline on the fire, right? They mimic or worsen the physical symptoms of anxiety.
Exactly. Caffeine directly triggers an adrenaline-like response. Alcohol might feel calming initially, but the rebound effect often increases anxiety later. Sugar crashes can mimic panic symptoms. Reducing or cutting these out was often a crucial step for people to lower that baseline level of hyperstimulation.
Makes sense, getting the chemical interference out of the way. Plus, focusing on good nutrition, whole foods, staying hydrated, supporting the body's basic ability to regulate itself.
Right. Then on top of that foundation, people use specific tools for intervention and regulation. Breathing techniques and meditation were huge.
Meditation wasn't a quick fix, though, was it?
No, definitely portrayed as a long game, but incredibly powerful with consistency, even just 15 to 30 minutes daily. One person shared that about 6 months of steady daily meditation practice led to them being essentially panic attack free for the following 5 years.
Wow. That's commitment, but what a payoff. It retrains the brain's attention circuits, presumably.
Yeah, helps you disengage from the constant internal monitoring and the anxious chatter. And then for those acute moments when panic is surging, specific breathing techniques were highlighted as essential for immediate relief.
The ones designed to calm the nervous system quickly.
Exactly. Things like box breathing, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, or the 4-7-8, breath inhale 4, hold 7, exhale slowly for 8. The key is often that longer exhale.
Why the long exhale?
It directly stimulates the vagus nerve, which is a major nerve pathway that helps regulate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest system. A long, slow exhale sends a powerful signal to your brainstem saying, essentially, okay, the danger is past, you can calm down now. It physically interrupts the adrenaline cascade.
That's a practical tool anyone can use anywhere. And simple grounding techniques, too, right? For when you feel like you're spinning out.
Distracting the mind with simple mental tasks, like counting backwards from 100 by 7s, or naming all the state capitals you can think of, or using your senses. Name 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear. Anything to pull your focus out of the internal storm and back into the present external reality. Okay, so we have mindset shifts, lifestyle changes, movement, breathing. What about professional help, therapy, and medication?
Crucial for many, absolutely. But the sources really emphasized that finding the right kind of support was key. Not just any therapist, but someone who really gets anxiety, who provides concrete tools and strategies.
And maybe challenges you a bit. I remember that quote.
Yeah, someone who actually called me out on my shit, as one person put it.
Yeah.
Someone who could gently but firmly challenge the avoidance, the compulsions, the unhelpful thought patterns.
What kinds of therapies seemed helpful? Several were mentioned. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, especially if there were trauma roots. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is obviously a standard for challenging thoughts and behaviors. ERP, exposure and response prevention, was highlighted specifically for OCD and breaking rumination or checking compulsions. And also somatic experiencing, or somatic tracking, which focuses directly on processing and releasing the physical tension and trauma held in the body itself.
Addressing the body's memory of the stress.
Exactly. And medication often played a really important role, especially early on or in severe cases. The perspective in the successful recovery stories wasn't that medication was a failure or a crutch, but rather a necessary tool, a temporary support.
Like that metaphor.
Yeah, the therapist who said it can let the steam out of the kettle. Medications like SSRI, things like Lexapro, fluoxetine, or other options like Wellbutrin or hydroxyzine can help stabilize the brain chemistry, lower that baseline anxiety level.
Giving people enough breathing room to actually do the therapy.
Exactly. It reduces the overwhelming internal noise, so they have the mental and emotional bandwidth to engage with the exposure work, practice the breathing, make the lifestyle changes. It creates the space needed for the deeper work.
And propranolol came up specifically too, didn't it? As acting differently.
Right. Propranolol is a beta blocker. It doesn't work on brain chemistry in the same way as SSRIs. It works by blocking some of the effects of adrenaline on the body.
So it stops the racing heart, the trembling.
Primarily, yes.
Yeah.
It dampens those really intense physical symptoms. And the interesting thing mentioned was how this could help reprogram the brain's fear response. If the anxious thought comes, I'm going to panic, but the body doesn't respond with the usual terrifying physical surge because the beta blocker is interfering, the brain starts to learn that the connection between that thought and physical catastrophe is broken. The thought loses its power.
So it interrupts the feedback loop physically. That makes a lot of sense.
And can lead to people needing less medication or different kinds later on as they build other coping skills.
One last point on therapy that felt really important, that reassurance given to someone with intense OCD fears.
Oh, yes. The therapist telling them they did not need to blow up their entire life, quit their job and the relationship, change all their hobbies to get better.
Which must feel like immense pressure if you think that's required.
Totally paralyzing.
Yeah.
But the therapist reframed it. You don't need to change your life. You need to change your relationship with the anxiety. The problem wasn't the external circumstances. It was the internal fear response that was making those circumstances feel unbearable. That validation, that permission to recover within your existing life can be incredibly freeing. #outro.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all mean? We've gone from these incredibly visceral, sometimes terrifying physical symptoms through the mechanics of how the nervous system gets stuck on high alert and looked at all these different paths people took towards recovery.
Yeah, and if you boil it down, the collective wisdom from all these personal journeys seems to point towards two fundamental shifts, doesn't it?
Which
First, learning to accept that internal alarm, signal the anxiety, the panic, the physical stuff, without constantly battling it. Letting it be there, observing it, not adding fear on top of fear.
Right. Acceptance, not resignation, but active acceptance.
Exactly. And second, consistently, patiently retraining the nervous system itself through those somatic tools, through movement, through breathing, and through those disciplined lifestyle choices that reduce the overall load on the system.
It's like stopping the fight and at the same time actively calming the system down. A two-pronged approach.
It reframes anxiety not as some kind of personal failing or a defect you have to crutch, but more like a smoke detector that's gone haywire, an alarm system that's become overly sensitive and is desperately, maybe mistakenly, demanding your attention and care.
And that idea of the alarm demanding attention brings us to a final thought, kind of a provocative one maybe, building on some concepts around trauma and that background alarm idea found in the source material.
Right. Some researchers, people working in trauma and neuroscience, float the idea that for some people, this chronic underlying anxiety, this feeling of constant unease or threat, might actually originate way back, like from a very early, maybe even unconscious feeling of separation or lack of safety in childhood.
Like a vulnerability that gets wired in really deep.
Potentially. A sense that the world isn't quite safe or that connection isn't secure, established long before we had words for it. And if there's any truth to that perspective, well, then maybe the relentless anxiety we feel as adults, that constant physical sense of impending doom, maybe it's partly a kind of displaced, desperate cry for attention and safety from a much younger, more vulnerable part of ourselves.
Wow. So the alarm isn't just a malfunction. It's a message from the past.
Perhaps. A message from an inner child, still locked in that fear state, still scanning for danger, unconsciously demanding the reassurance and safety it didn't get enough of back then. And if that's the case, maybe the deepest healing isn't just about managing the current symptoms, but about consciously turning towards that frightened part within us, acknowledging its fear, and deliberately giving it the consistent love, safety, and unwavering reassurance it's been screaming for through the alarm system all this time.
That really lands differently. It shifts it from fixing a broken machine to tending to a part of yourself. So the question for you, the listener, becomes, what part of you might need that attention, that validation, that conscious reassurance right now? What small, consistent step, maybe it's just a minute of calm breathing. Maybe it's acknowledging a difficult feeling without judgment. Maybe it's committing to gentle movement. What one small thing can you start implementing today to begin soothing that deepest alarm?
That was our deep dive. We'll catch you next time.